More on our top story now. The Sky News investigation revealing an increased threat of a terror attack in the UK. It's not just in Britain that the so-called Islamic State is inspiring attacks. Well, let's take a look at some recent examples elsewhere that show why the authorities must take such threats seriously. At the end of last year, 3 people were killed after armed police stormed a cafe in Sydney in Australia where IS-inspired gunman Harun Monis had taken 17 people hostage. In January, coordinated attacks in Paris were carried out involving a shooting at satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo and an attack at a kosher grocery store. In February, police in Copenhagen shot dead suspect Omar El Hussein over the murders of 2 people and woundings of 5 police officers. The first shooting took place at an event discussing freedom of speech in the wake of the January Paris terror attacks. In March, 2 gunmen in Tunis stormed the Bardo National Museum, killing 21 people, including 17 foreigners. Back in France, and suspect Yassine Salhi was arrested in the southeast in June over beheading his boss and setting off a blast at a chemical factory. And on the same day, 30 Britons were among 38 tourists killed when gunman Seyfeddine Rezgui opened fire on Sousse Beach in Tunisia. Well, let's speak now to Muhbeen Hussain, who's the founder of British Muslim Youth. He joins us now live via Skype from Yorkshire. Very good evening to you. What Sky News has found in this investigation that actually IS tactics could change, are changing to recruit people, leave them in their own country, in this occasion the UK, and take it from there. Is this a worrying trend as far as you're concerned?
Well, I think it's quite shocking and worrying for everybody out there. I was asked a question, is it worrying for children of British Muslims? Well, I think it's worrying out there for everybody. You know, you've named a lot of the attacks that have happened by ISIS. And if you look at the attacks, that ISIS have a certain type of ideology that believes in the end of world type of ideology where only their way of life can flourish. And they take no casualties. So you've seen a high proportion of Muslim casualties in this. You've seen Sunnis and Sufis and Shias and Coptic Christians and Westerners. And, you know, I think this is a very shocking revelation. It shows failure within government policy as well. The Prime Minister came out in a government strategy to suggest that passports of young children that may be vulnerable to go out to Syria and Iraq might be seized. But if ISIS are changing their strategy and this is going to be British people on British soil, then I think we really need to come together and get a grips with it.
Muhbeen, most of those attacks I mentioned there that we listed involved people who had travelled to IS training camps or at least been out of the country. If the targeting of people is within their own country, we sort of assume that there must be some sort of brainwashing going on in order for them to follow this ideology. How's the brainwashing being so successful, do you think? If it is all via social media, via the internet, surely there needs to be some contact, some community cohesion there.
Well, that's a brilliant question there. I think I would answer that question and look at that in 2 different parts. I think, firstly, my opinion and my assessment on that suggests that there's 3 major factors within that. So, foreign policy, I think a lot of people have. I'm not here to say that foreign policy leads somebody to go and blow themselves up or go outside and kill people. But our British foreign policy, you can't kill hundreds and thousands of people in Iraq in foreign policy and certain types of other foreign policy and expect nothing to happen. I think they are factors that alienate people, that actually ignite, a hate or a confusion within people. And then you have the second factor, which is alienation. We've had a high proportion of Islamophobia that has risen within this country, within Europe and throughout the world because of IS and other things. So that's resulted in schools having a rise in Islamophobia. We've had Islamophobia on the streets of London, one of the most multicultural cities in the world. And I think this causes alienation. But yeah, I agree, there is ideology. There is an ideology, this Khawarijite ideology that they profess, where they suggest only their way of life can succeed. And we've seen that actually leads to brainwashing people. And a lot of things do happen online, but we need to come together and work strategically on this. The Prime Minister has actually discussed that, the successes that have happened from the Muslim community, but it's now time for the Muslim community and the Prime Minister to come together and work together as one. I would actually ask the government to have a collective approach on this, not just a government approach, but to bring in the opposition, to bring in all political parties and all sides of the debate all on one platform to actually discuss this, because we need to have a clear strategy on it.
What's your theory, Muhbeen? We know that IS aims to create this caliphate, to create a huge swathe of land across Europe, parts of Africa as well, the Middle East, that they want to control. Why then attack Western targets? Why then attack within Britain?
Well, we've had this question asked time and time again. We've had policy makers, researchers, academics, politicians, men in suits actually sit in a room and discuss why is the reasons and why are the factors. And this is why my organization, along with Faith Matters, has actually launched the first of its kind a national youth consultation. Let's not ask men in academia or in politics why the factors are out there, but why don't we actually go to the grassroots, actually go to young British Muslims who IS are trying to get in contact with via social media and ask them what the driving factors are. Ask young British Muslims what are the vulnerability and the factors, because they are the people, the real important people within this debate, but for so long have not been actually questioned or even been brought into the debate, which I found quite profound. We have also other types of organizations that actually work on radicalization and dealing with Islamist ideologies, but don't want to work with Muslims. I think one of the things we must do is speak to grassroots Muslims and ask them what are the vulnerabilities, what are the factors, why they may see an appeal, what concerns do they have. I think for me as a young British Muslim, I see whenever there's an attack by IS, there is this profound belief that I must come out and condemn these actions. I do condemn them, but I don't condemn them just as a Muslim. I condemn these acts of barbarism as a human being, like my fellow Muslims and my fellow British people throughout this country.
OK. Muhbeen Hussain, thank you very much for joining us. Muhbeen is the founder of the British Muslim Youth. Thank you.